Geographers, get ready, because in this video we are going to be reviewing everything you need to know for Unit 2 of AP Human Geography. Now this video is going to go fast. It's going to review everything that's listed in the course exam description for AP Human Geography. So you want to make sure that you have the study guide out that's found in my ultimate review packet, as the study guide goes along with the video. That way you can take notes on all the major concepts and make sure that you don't miss any of the information that you need to know. Also, when you get the study guide, don't forget to check out the rest of the packet as well. The packet has unit review videos for each unit, practice quizzes, study guides, answer keys, full practice AP exams, FRQ resources, important vocab lists, exclusive videos, and other resources to help you get an A in your class and a 5 on that national exam. All right, now that you have your study guide out and you're ready to review, let's start this massive review off by examining the distribution of the human population. Today, we can see that there are 4 major regions where people live. In fact, over 2/3 of the world's population live in these areas. There is South Asia, which consists of countries such as India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. East Asia, where we can see countries such as China, Japan, and Korea. Southeast Asia, which is made up of several different states, including Thailand, the Philippines, and Vietnam, just to name a few. These 3 regions primarily have people located near rivers and oceans. Unlike our last region, which is Europe, which here people are located closer to natural resources, instead of clustering solely around rivers and oceans. This can be attributed to the Industrial Revolution, which started in Europe and led to the creation of different industrial cities that were dependent on natural resources. Now we can see that the location of human settlements is often influenced by both physical and human factors of a place. Physical factors are the natural elements that make up a place, such as the climate, weather patterns, landforms, bodies of water, and natural resources. Historically and today, we can see that most of the major cities around the world are in regions that offer favorable physical features, such as being close to a body of water that facilitates global trade, or by being located near arable land and places with natural resources, all of which allow for industries to grow and prosper. On the other hand, human factors refer to various economic, cultural, historical, and political aspects of a place. People often choose to reside in areas that provide a variety of economic opportunities, including access to various jobs and services, stable employment, and a wide range of amenities. In terms of culture, we can see individuals tend to seek out locations where they feel accepted, can identify with society, and feel a sense of community. We can also look at historical events and how they have impacted population distribution. For example, the migration of people has been influenced by past trade routes, different historical events, political boundaries, and former empires. Lastly, we could look at how political factors impact population distribution, with people often gravitating to areas with a more stable political environment that offer more protection and maintain a cohesive, functioning society. Now remember, when talking about population distribution, we are talking about the spread of people in an area. We can see that places can be dispersed, which means they have their population, buildings, or other features spread out or scattered over a wider geographic area, instead of being clustered together. If a place is clustered together, it means the population, buildings, or other features in a place are concentrated in a specific area or region with little to no space between the different features. Now, when looking at population distribution of a place, we can also examine the population density of a place. Population density is the amount of people in an area, and unlike population distribution, we are not focusing on the spread of people. Instead, we are focusing on the number of people. When looking at density, we can see that there are 3 main types of population density that you need to know: arithmetic density, physiological density, and the agricultural density. The arithmetic density is a commonly used metric to show how crowded a particular area is. This density can be easily calculated by dividing the total number of individuals living in an area by the total land area of the geographic area. A higher arithmetic density indicates that more people are residing in each unit of land, while a lower number suggests that fewer individuals are living in each unit of land. However, it is important to note that the arithmetic density does not account for the distribution of people within an area. It assumes that everyone is evenly spread out across the area, and also does not consider land use patterns that are not intended for residential living, such as agricultural land or uninhabitable land. So just because the arithmetic density is 80 does not necessarily mean that there are 80 people living in each unit of land in the area. The next density is the physiological density, which measures the pressure that a population exerts on the environment to feed the population. To calculate the physiological density, you need to divide the total number of people in an area by the total amount of arable land. Notice here we are not including all of the land for the area. Instead, we we are only factoring in arable land, which is land that can produce food. A higher physiological density indicates that more food needs to be produced from each unit of arable land, thereby increasing the pressure on the environment. Societies with a high physiological density run the risk of damaging their arable land by depleting its nutrients, which can lead to desertification. This can force societies to rely on importing food from other places rather than producing it themselves. The final density we can examine is the agricultural density, which shows the level of efficiency of agricultural production in an area and the degree of reliance on human labor versus technology. To calculate the agricultural density, we need to divide the number of farmers in an area by the total amount of arable land. A high number indicates more manual labor to cultivate the crop, while lower agricultural density indicates a high degree of mechanization and more technological advancement, resulting in more of the work on the farm being completed by machines instead of by hand, all of which allows for more efficient production. To make sure you're understanding these concepts, take some time and answer the practice problems in your study guide. Also, if you feel like you need more help with the application of these different densities, head on over to my ultimate review packet after the video, where you'll find an exclusive video helping you practice these concepts. Alright, so now that we have an understanding of both population density and distribution, let's explore the different consequences of both of these concepts. Politically, we can see that areas that have a higher population density often have greater political power and representation compared to sparsely populated areas with a low population density. Population distribution can also impact voting patterns by affecting the redrawing of voting districts or by creating divisions between urban and rural areas. In terms of the economy, we can observe that areas with a higher population density usually have more opportunities for citizens, including a wider range of goods and services and a larger labor market. While on the other hand, areas that have a lower population density and have more of a dispersed population often have less access to various amenities and end up relying more on larger cities for resources and services. Areas with a higher population density, with their people living closer together, are more likely to have higher taxes and more expensive products compared to areas with a low population density and a more sparsely populated population, which generally have lower home prices, fewer taxes, and cheaper goods and services. Then there are social consequences of population density and distribution, which can vary based on the type of place. Typically, larger and more densely populated areas have better access to educational and healthcare services, a wider range of restaurants, and more economic and social opportunities for citizens. On the other hand, areas with a lower population density and more of a dispersed population tend to lack specialized services, as well as various social offerings, but have more of a community feel. Lastly, we can look at the impact that density and distribution have on the environment. Densely populated societies with more urbanization often see more urban sprawl, which results in the replacement of green spaces with buildings and streets. While on the other hand, areas with a dispersed population are more likely to have more undisturbed areas and green spaces. These factors can also affect a society's carrying capacity, which refers to the maximum population size that an environment can support without damaging it. If a population exceeds the carrying capacity of its environment, it may lead to overexploitation of resources, depletion of essential nutrients, and increase the chance of desertification and also food shortages. Alright, now that we have explored how density and distribution can impact a geographic area, let's shift our focus now and delve into population composition, which refers to the various demographic characteristics of a population, including factors like age, gender, ethnicity, educational attainment, income, and also occupation. By analyzing these different characteristics, we can gain insight into the social, economic, and cultural factors that shape a society. One tool that we can use to better understand some of these different demographic characteristics is a population pyramid. And it's important that you can not only read a population pyramid, but also be able to make inferences about a society based on the data in a pyramid. The y-axis of a population pyramid represents different age ranges or cohorts, which can be found on either the left side or in the middle of the pyramid, depending on the population pyramid's layout. On the x-axis, we can see the amount of people, which is either shown as an exact number or is presented as a percent. You can also see that the population pyramid is divided into two sides, one representing women and the other representing men, with each bar indicating the number of individuals belonging to a specific age range and sex. Now, we can classify the different age ranges into three main categories based on different stages of life. The first being pre-reproductive years, which consists of individuals who are between the ages of 0 to 14. The second being reproductive years, which consists of individuals who are between the ages of 15 to 44. And lastly, post-reproductive years, which consists of people who are 45 years and above. Now, population pyramids can provide valuable insights not only into current trends, but also past events and potential future challenges. Whenever we change the scale of the population pyramid, we can see different aspects of a population. National governments can examine demographic trends to better understand the rate of aging, their growth rate, and potential challenges for the future. For instance, the top-heavy pyramid indicates an aging population, which could lead to increased healthcare usage, declining tax revenue, and a decrease in the overall population. Population pyramids can be used to gain insight not only at the national scale, but also the regional and local scale. At the regional level, population pyramids can provide insight into the economic potential of a region based on the age distribution of its population. Regions with a large percentage of the population in their 20s may have a growing workforce, making them more attractive to businesses. At the local level, population pyramids can help us understand the dynamics of a community. For instance, a city with a large percentage of its population in the 20 to 24 age range may be home to different colleges and universities, resulting in more of a vibrant downtown and higher demand for rental property. We can also use population pyramids to gain insight into a country's sex ratio and dependency ratio. The sex ratio shows us the ratio of males to females in a population. To find this ratio, you take the number of male births in society and divide it by the number of female births, then multiply it by 100. If this ratio is above 100, it means that there are more male births in society, but if it's less than 100, it means there's more female births in society. And if you get a number that's exactly 100, it means the births between males and females are the same. Next is the dependency ratio, which gives us insight into how many people a society needs to support. The higher the number is, the greater the burden there will be on the working population. To find this ratio, you take the number of children aged 0 to 14 and add the amount of people who are 65 years or older, then divide by the working age population and multiply by 100. Now, this ratio can also be broken down further into the child dependency ratio and elderly dependency ratio. The child dependency ratio takes the number of people between ages 0 to 14 and divides by the number of people from ages 15 to 64, then multiplies by 100. While the elderly dependency ratio takes the number of people 65 years and older and divides by the number of people between the ages of 65 to 64, then multiplies by 100. Now, for the last part of this section and for the rest of the questions in your study guide, I want you to practice breaking down these different population pyramids. Understanding how to read them is one thing, but it's more important that you can connect these pyramids and concepts to the real world. If you do need more help with these pyramids, I've created exclusive videos and practice resources that can only be found in the Ultimate Review Pack in order to help you practice these concepts even more. Now that we have reviewed population composition, the time has come to go over population dynamics. And to start, let's review a couple important terms that you need to be familiar with. The first term is the crude birth rate, which represents the number of live births per 1,000 people in a population within a given year. The second term is the crude death rate, which represents the number of deaths per 1,000 people in a population within a given year. Now, we can use the CBR and the CDR to determine our next term, which is the natural increase rate, also known as the rate of natural increase. To calculate the NIR, we subtract the CDR from the CBR, which will show us a rate of the population growth or decline in a society. This is the percentage by which a population is changing in a given year due to births and deaths, without accounting for migration. Countries with a high NIR will take less time to double their population, which often creates challenges for countries as they may not be able to keep up with their growing population, resulting in a strain on the country's infrastructure and system. The amount of time it takes for a population to double in size is known as the doubling time. Countries often will track these growth metrics to better understand how they need to utilize their resources, set policies, and predict future challenges or opportunities that they might have. Up next is the total fertility rate, which is the average number of children a woman will have. A TFR of 2.1 is considered to be the replacement rate. If a country's TFR falls below 2.1, the population size will decrease, while a TFR above 2.1 indicates population growth. Lastly, there is the infant mortality rate, which is the total number of deaths of infants under 1 year of age per 1,000 live births. Now we can see that different social, cultural, economic, and political factors all have a significant impact on the different factors that we just talked about. Access to better healthcare and educational services traditionally lead to an increase in the life expectancy of a society and result in a decrease in the TFR, IMR, and also NIR. If women have more access to education and opportunities in a society, we start to see traditional gender roles be changed, which reduces gender inequality in a society. Societies that consist of traditional gender roles with rigid systems in place usually have have a higher TFR and NIR, as women have fewer opportunities outside of the home. More economically developed areas often have higher rates of urbanization, with more jobs opened up in the tertiary sector instead of the primary and secondary sector, which is one of the reasons why these societies often see smaller family sizes, as children are no longer viewed as economic assets and individuals prioritize their career. On the other hand, areas that are less economically developed tend to have economies that are agricultural based, with a greater concentration of jobs in the primary and secondary sector. This often leads to larger family sizes, as individuals require more assistance on their farms and in their homes. Finally, the impact of political policies on population growth can also be seen in a society. We can see that governments have the power to implement laws and use propaganda to encourage family planning, promote the use of contraceptives, and enhance access to education for everyone, all of which would decrease the population growth rate of a society. However, if a government restricts access to contraceptives, fails to provide adequate education on family planning, and denies women their rights, the result may be an increase in the population's growth rate. All right, the time has come to go over the demographic transition model, which is arguably one of the most important models in this course. The first stage of the model is characterized by a high CBR and CDR, resulting in a low NIR. In this stage, the majority of the population is engaged in subsistence agriculture, where people produce food primarily for their own consumption rather than for sale. Women in this stage typically have limited opportunities in society and lack access to education, with their roles primarily being focused on household tasks and childbearing. Migration during this stage is often seasonal, as people migrate in search of food. Societies in this stage also lack access to medicine, contraceptives, and medical knowledge, resulting in high mortality rates, which can come from almost really anything. Now, today there no longer are any countries in stage 1, as they've all moved further along the demographic transition model. Now, after the Industrial Revolution, many countries began transitioning from stage 1 to stage 2 of the demographic transition model. Countries in stage 2 continue to have a high CBR. However, their CDR starts to decrease, resulting in a significant increase in their NIR, all of which causes a population boom. Countries in stage 2 start to see their IMR and CDR decrease thanks to advancements in technology, increased agricultural production, better sanitation, and increased knowledge in medicine. During stage 2, women start to see slight expansions of their role, which allows them to occasionally participate in the formal economy. However, women's access to education remains limited, and they continue to serve as primarily caregivers in their home. Countries also observe changes in their migration patterns, with more individuals leaving rural areas and relocating to urban regions, all of which happens as people continue to search for more economic opportunities located in urban areas, and due to changes in agricultural production, as production now is transitioning from subsistence agriculture over to commercial. Today, we can also see increased rates of emigration as well, as more migrants seek economic opportunities in core countries and more economically developed areas. When looking at the world today, we can see countries like Afghanistan are in stage 2 of the demographic transition model, as seen here in their population pyramid. Notice that the majority of their population is in the pre-reproductive years and reproductive years, which shows a country with an expanding population. Now, as countries progress into stage 3, we can start to see their CBR decline, and their CDR continues to decrease as well, all of which makes their NIR more moderate, part of which is due to improved medical technology, which leads to a higher life expectancy and a reduction in the infant mortality rate, ultimately resulting in smaller family sizes. Urban areas also start to become more dominant economic centers in the state, with jobs focusing in manufacturing. As more people continue to migrate from rural areas to urban areas, we start to see people have fewer children due to a lack of space and also due to economic changes. During stage 3, women also start to gain greater access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunity, which contribute to the declining CBR and NIR. As society continues to advance economically, we start to see a rise in job opportunities in the secondary sector of the economy, along with also growth happening in the tertiary sector. As more economic opportunities open up in the country, we also start to see shifts in the amount of migrants who are emigrating from the country, as more people continue to migrate to urban areas for economic opportunities. Today, we can look at Mexico as an example of a stage 3 country. Notice when looking at Mexico's population pyramid, the middle of the pyramid is starting to fill out. More people in the country are now in their reproductive years and post-reproductive years. We can see that Mexico is still growing as a country, but not as fast as it would have been if it was in stage 2. Moving on to stage 4, we can see countries that have a low CBR, low CDR, and also a low to flat NIR. During this stage, countries may experience ZPG, which stands for zero population growth. This happens when a CBR and a CDR are essentially the same, causing the NIR to be zero. During stage 4, we can see women play an active role in society and the economy, with greater access to education, being able to pursue careers, and more control over their reproductive choices. Countries in stage 4 also have access to specialized medicine and doctors, as well as a robust healthcare system. We also can see migration patterns start to shift as urban areas start to experience counter-urbanization, as more people start to move into the suburbs. Additionally, countries in stage 4 witnessed increased immigration from less economically developed states, as more individuals seek economic opportunities in the country. Today, we can see countries like the United States and China are good examples of a stage 4 country. If we look at their population pyramids, we can see they form more of a box shape. Notice that the population is spread out between the different age cohorts, and while the countries are no longer seeing a large population growth, they are also not seeing a large decline. Finally, there is the speculative stage 5, which is characterized by a low CBR, a low CDR, and a negative NIR. In this stage, the country's births fall below their deaths, resulting in a decline in the population. Countries that could be in stage 5 would be Japan or Germany. Notice how the majority of their population is located in the post-reproductive years on their population pyramid. Both of these countries have a negative NIR, which means their overall population is decreasing. It's also important to note that migration can impact these trends, and when discussing CBR, CDR, and NIR, we are only looking at births and deaths that occur within a country. Immigration is not factored into these metrics. The last part of this section is the epidemiologic transition model, which focuses on the causes of death for each stage of the demographic transition model. Stage 1 is characterized by high mortality rates from pestilence, famine, and other causes. People are vulnerable to a range of diseases, including parasitic and infectious diseases, animal attacks, pandemics, epidemics, food shortages, and contaminated water sources, just to name a few. Essentially, if you can name it, you can die from it. One of the most well-known killers in this stage was the bubonic plague. Stage 2 is categorized by fewer deaths and a reduction in pandemics. During this stage, society gains access to new technologies that not only improve the standard of living, but also increase the amount of food that is produced. People start to see an increase in their caloric intake, and there is an improvement in the sanitation. As societies continue to progress, they eventually reach stage 3, which is characterized by an increase in degenerative diseases. During this stage, people start to live longer and begin to die from diseases that are either caused by human behavior or are related to aging. Examples include heart disease from eating unhealthy food and various types of cancer. Next is stage 4, which is categorized by fighting degenerative diseases and overall longer life expectancy. Here, medical advancements can often delay the onset of different diseases, leading to increased life expectancy. During this stage, people generally continue to improve their diets and make better health decisions, such as by avoiding drug use. However, advancements in society can also lead to negative eating habits, such as the consumption of junk food and a sedentary lifestyle, which can contribute to new health problems like obesity and diabetes. The 5th and final stage is characterized by the resurgence of infectious diseases, including parasitic and infectious diseases that become more prevalent again. This can occur due to the evolution of different diseases, which can lead to mutations and the development of antibiotic resistance. Another reason is the increase in poverty and urbanization, as densely populated areas make it easier for diseases to spread. While at the same time, we can see that people living in poverty often have limited access to healthcare, which can result in a higher CDR. Lastly, globalization and the ease of travel can also contribute to the spread of pandemics, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, as people share ideas and germs across the world. Now, one thing I want to quick point out is the first 4 stages of the demographic transition model pair pretty well with the first 4 stages of the epidemiologic transition model. However, the 5th stage does not connect. Moving into the next part of the unit, we have Malthusian Theory. Malthus was an English economist who lived in England during the Industrial Revolution, when England was in stage 2 of the demographic transition model. Malthus became concerned over the population growth of society. He argued that while society's population would continue to grow exponentially, its ability to produce food would only increase at an arithmetic rate. This would eventually lead to a Malthusian catastrophe in which the population would surpass the carrying capacity, resulting in famine, war, disease outbreaks, and the collapse of society. To stop this, Malthus believed that an intervention was necessary to prevent uncontrolled population growth. For example, governments could start implementing anti-natalist policies that would motivate people to have less kids. Malthus was criticized during his time. His ideas of smaller family sizes came out during a time where people had larger families. Ultimately, we can see Malthus turned out to be wrong, as countries develop economically, their growth rates start to slow, resulting in their population rate no longer being exponential. And due to the agricultural revolutions and advancements in farming technology, we can also see food production increase at a faster rate than what Malthus predicted. Nevertheless, there are still people out there who believe in Malthus. They are known as neo-Malthusians, and they believe that the world's supply of natural resources will deplete as population continues to grow. Neo-Malthusians have expanded on Malthus's original idea to not just include food, but resources in general. Essentially, the world has a finite supply of natural resources, and as our population continues to grow, we will continue to deplete those resources. An example of a neo-Malthusian would be Thanos, who believed that killing half of the world's population was the solution to this problem. All right, geographers, you're over halfway done with Unit 2, and I know it's a long one, but you're doing great. Make sure you keep following along with that study guide, and if you need to, take a little stretch break, stretch it out. All right, now we're going to be moving into 2.7 though, where we're going to be talking about governments and their ability to influence population. We can see that governments have the power to influence demographic trends and migration patterns, all by using various tools. We can divide government policies that impact population growth into two categories. Pronatalist policies are designed to encourage people to have more children and larger families. These policies often involve propaganda, tax incentives for families with children, resources for family planning, and the removal of economic or political barriers for families. These policies are typically implemented in a country with a low or negative NIR. On the other hand, we also have countries that have a high NIR, where we can see the implementation of antinatalist policies, which seek to reduce the amount of births in a society. For example, China's one-child policy, which set limits on the amount of children individuals can have. This was a controversial law and was put in place to prevent overpopulation from occurring. Now, I do want to note that recently China has doubled back on this policy and started to modify. This is because this policy was so effective at limiting family size that China's population growth fell almost too much. In addition to population policies, migration policies can also impact a society's growth. Governments often base their immigration policies on their economic needs, national security priorities, and cultural values. When immigrants are allowed into a country, it tends to increase the economic output of the country, increase the amount of diversity in the country, and can lead to new inventions and ideas for society. All right, now comes the time to talk about women and demographic changes. As economies develop, opportunities for women tend to increase. In economically developed countries, women have greater access to quality education, participate more in the workforce, have better access to healthcare, and have more control over their reproductive choices. With increased education, women tend to delay having children, resulting in a lower total fertility rate and infant mortality rate. This is because as women get educated, they end up spending more time in school and in the workforce, leading to fewer children being born on average. Additionally, as both men and women gain education, they learn more about how to keep children safe, healthy, and happy, resulting in a lower IMR. This increase in economic development and opportunities for women also leads to a decrease in the maternal mortality rate, which is the annual number of female deaths per 100,000 live births from any cause related to pregnancy. In countries with greater gender inequality, women tend to have fewer opportunities, less access to education, legal protection, and are often limited to traditional gender roles as caretakers, which often results in these countries tending to have higher TFR. Countries that offer women less opportunities and protections tend to be countries with less economic development. We can see that economic development and greater opportunities for women not only change the birth and growth rate of a country, but can also change migration patterns as well. To understand migration patterns, we can look at Ravenstein's laws of migration. Ravenstein's laws of migration provide insight into migration patterns, but it should be noted that some of these have started to change in recent years due to different political, cultural, and economic shifts in society. Ravenstein observed that most migration happens for economic reasons and is often undertaken by young adults. This is because young adults have fewer ties to a specific geographic area and are more flexible to take advantage of economic opportunities in other places. Ravenstein also noted that migrants often travel short distances and will travel in step migration, which ties into our next law, which is that migrants are more likely to move from a rural area to an urban area. As migrants travel towards their final destination, they tend to settle in different towns and cities before reaching a larger urban area. The farther the migrant is traveling, the more likely it is that they are migrating to a larger urban area. This pattern is also observed in the gravity model, which helps to explain migration flows between different geographic locations. The gravity model is based on the assumption that migration flows are influenced by the population population size and distance between the migrant's origin and destination. Notice here, even though City 2 and City 3 are closer together, both are more likely to migrate and interact with City 1. Ravenstein also noted that whenever migration happens, a counterstream would be created. This means that when a person migrates to a new place, they connect their original location with the new location. The next law stated that large urban areas tend to experience population growth primarily through migration, rather than by natural birth. Now, Ravenstein also observed that migration can lead to increased development, as it often brings new goods, foods, ideas, and businesses with it. Lastly, Ravenstein noted that women are more likely to migrate internally within a country, while young males are most likely to migrate internationally. This was because traditionally, men were the only ones who had access to more wealth and were seen as the provider of the family. However, in recent years, we have started to see this change as more women enter the workforce and gain financial freedom. All right, now we've talked about changes in economic development and also birth rates, but we also need to talk about what happens when a population starts to age. As countries experience economic development, their populations tend to age, leading to new challenges. One major challenge is the increase in the dependency ratio when more people start to retire, putting a greater burden on the working population. A higher dependency ratio means less people are working and paying into the system, while at the same time as people retire, we can see more people starting to access their retirement funds and need more healthcare services, resulting in more money being taken out of the system. This shift in demographics may lead to a reduction in economic growth as countries raise taxes to support their aging population's healthcare and retirement needs. Aging societies may also see shifts in family structures, with family members taking on the responsibility of providing care for their elderly relatives. Countries with an older population also may experience a decrease in their growth rate, as the majority of citizens are now in their post-reproductive years, resulting in shortages of workers to support the economy. Now, to try and combat some of these trends, some countries may start to implement pro-natalist policies to boost their NIR and reduce their overall dependency ratio. Or we can see countries implement more pro-immigrant policies to try and attract a new workforce. All right, now changing gears and moving into migration, we can see that people migrate for a variety of different reasons. When looking at migration, we can see different push and pull factors. Pull factors refer to the positive conditions, events, and factors that attract people to a particular geographic location. While on the other hand, push factors refer to the negative conditions, events, and factors that motivate people to leave their current geographic location. Every place has different economic, political, social, and environmental push and pull factors. Economic push factors, for example, could include a lack of job opportunities in a person's home country, economic instability, high taxes, or a higher cost of living. While economic pull factors could be more business opportunities, less taxes, or greater variety of goods and services. Political push factors may include political persecution, discrimination, lack of political freedom, or an unstable political environment. While political pull factors may include better access to government services, protection of individual rights, political freedom, or political stability. Social push factors may include religious or cultural persecution, rampant discrimination, or a lack of social services such as healthcare or education. On the other hand, social pull factors may include positive situations like access to quality healthcare, increased access to education, acceptance of different cultures, or a desire to be close to other family members. Lastly, environmental push factors may include negative situations like natural disasters, environmental degradation, increased air and water pollution, or undesirable climate. While environmental pull factors may include favorable climates, better living conditions with less pollution, or more access to arable land and natural resources. Now, if a person is moving out of a place, it is known as emigration. And if a person is moving into a place, it's known as immigration. To make sure you don't mix these terms up, think of immigration as E for exit and immigration as I for in. Two other concepts that you will want to be familiar with when it comes to migration is intervening obstacles and intervening opportunities. Intervening obstacles are negative situations or events that hinder migration and end up preventing migrants from reaching their final destination. For example, if a migrant ran out of money to complete their migration or are denied entry to an area due to immigration policy. While intervening opportunities, on the other hand, are positive situations or events that hinder migration and end up preventing migrants from reaching their final destination. For example, if you were on your way to your destination but find a job offer in an area you were driving through and decide to take the job. Now, when it comes to migration, we can see that migration can either be forced or voluntary. Let's start by reviewing forced migration, which is when the migrant has no choice but to migrate. Human trafficking, forced child labor, child soldiers, slavery are all examples of forced migration. Forced migration happens when individuals are compelled to leave their country due to reasons such as war, political oppression, or environmental disaster. Migrants who have been forced to leave their home country and have crossed an international border in order to escape war, persecution, or natural disasters are known as refugees. Oftentimes, refugees may seek asylum in another country. If a migrant does not cross an international boundary, then they would not be classified as a refugee and would instead be classified as an internally displaced person. IDPs have been forced to flee their home in order to protect themselves and their family, just like a refugee, but they have not crossed an internationally recognized state boundary, so they remain in their home country. Now, unlike forced migration, voluntary migration happens because people are choosing to leave their current location on their own free will. Transnational migration occurs when people choose to leave their country of origin and seek residence in a different state. Typically, transnational migrants maintain ties to their home country and settle in areas with similar cultural values. Chain migration is a type of migration that is part of a country's family reunification policy. This type of migration is a process in which legal immigrants who have become naturalized citizens sponsor a family member to immigrate to the country. Step migration refers to migration that occurs in stages, where migrants make stops at different locations before reaching their final destination. Oftentimes, we can see migrants who are migrating by step migration be impacted by intervening opportunities or intervening obstacles, which may prevent them from getting to their final destination. Now, sometimes migrants may temporarily migrate to a new country for work or for educational reasons. These migrants are known as guest workers. Oftentimes, these migrants may send money back to their home country, which is known as remittance. The next type of migration is transhumance migration. This migration is cyclical, meaning that it occurs in regular intervals or patterns. Transhumance migration revolves around the seasonal movement of livestock between two different locations. Livestock is led to highland areas in the summer months and lowland areas in the winter months. Then there is rural to urban migration, which is the movement of people from rural areas to urban areas. This most often occurs because people are seeking more economic opportunities in the larger urban areas. Lastly, you also want to be familiar with both intra-regional migration and inter-regional migration. Two terms that honestly are really easy to mix up. Intra-regional migration refers to the movement of people within a particular region. For example, a person moving from an urban area to a suburban area, while inter-regional migration refers to the movement of people between different regions. For example, if I moved from the Midwest of the United States down to the southeast of the United States, just remember intra-regional migration is the movement of people within the same region, while inter-regional migration is migration from one region to another. And this is also a great reason why you need to take your time on your Unit 2 test or the AP National Exam. You always want to read every question very carefully. If you skim questions or answers, you're more likely to miss small details that could cost you points. If you need more help with the different types of migration and causes of migration, you can find more exclusive resources and videos inside my ultimate review pack. All right, we're on to the last part of Unit 2, and it's important now that we examine the impact that migration can have on a region. The political ramifications of migration can be seen in everyday conversations and media discussion as citizens debate issues such as citizenship for migrants and which immigration policies should be prioritized. We can see that individuals who wish to reduce the number of immigrants entering a country may support immigration quotas that limit the number of immigrants admitted in a year. While on the other hand, those who want to increase the number of immigrants may endorse policies such as family reunification or diversity lottery programs, which allow individuals from specific countries worldwide to enter a country. Economically, we can see increased immigration often leads to increased talent pools as societies gain new skills, knowledge, and expertise from their new migrants, all of which leads to more economic output for a country. On the other hand, countries that do not have as much to offer their citizens might experience brain drain, which is when skilled labor leaves a geographic area in favor of another area that offers more opportunities. Culturally, migration leads to the mixing of different traditions, languages, and values, leading to acculturation, assimilation, or syncretism. As more migrants enter the country, we often see the cultural diversity of the country increase. But at the same time, we also may see anti-immigrant or refugee sentiment develop. This often happens when individuals are worried about losing certain aspects of their life, culture, or unique cultural landscape. All right, geographers, you have done it! We are done with Unit 2. Now comes the time to check your answers to the study guide and also practice what we have learned. In order to make sure that you are ready for your unit test, head on over to my ultimate review review packet and take the unit practice quiz. All right, that's it for today. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you found value in this video, consider subscribing. And I'm Mr. Sinn, and I will see you next time online.